Hello, everyone. Welcome to another English lesson. Today, we will read a simple story called Your Future Starts Now. This story is written in easy English for beginners. David was a young student. He had many dreams. He wanted a happy life, a good job, and a bright future. But every day, he waited. He always said, "I will start tomorrow." One afternoon, his teacher asked David, "When will you start working for your dream?" David smiled and said, "Maybe tomorrow." The teacher looked at him and said, "Tomorrow is not the answer. Your future starts now." These words stayed in David's mind. When he arrived home, he thought carefully. He understood that every small action today could change his future. That evening, he opened his English book. He learned 5 new words. He read 1 page. He wrote 3 simple sentences. Before sleeping, he smiled and said, "Today is my first step." David knew he was not perfect, but he also knew that success begins with one small decision. The next morning, David woke up earlier than usual. He looked out of the window and smiled. The teacher's words were still in his mind. Your future starts now. He decided that today would be different. After breakfast, David made a simple plan. First, he would study English for 20 minutes. Next, he would finish his homework. Then, he would read a short story before going to bed. The plan was not difficult, but it was clear. David opened his English book. At first, some words were new. He did not understand everything, but he did not stop. He used a dictionary and wrote the new words in a notebook. He read each word 2 times. Then he spoke each word aloud. Every day, David learned a little more. He learned 5 new words, 1 short sentence, and 1 small lesson. His confidence began to grow. English was becoming easier. One afternoon, his friend Ben visited him. Ben asked, "Why are you studying every day? Don't you get tired?" David smiled and answered, "Of course, I get tired sometimes, but I remember my dream. Small steps today will create a better tomorrow." Ben thought for a moment. Then he said, "I want to change my life too. Can I study with you?" David smiled and said, "Yes, let's learn together." From that day, the 2 friends studied every evening. They read easy English stories, practiced simple conversations, and learned new vocabulary. Sometimes they made mistakes, but they laughed, corrected each other, and kept going. Week after week, they became better students. They were not the smartest students in the class, but they were the most consistent. They understood that success does not come from one big action. Success comes from many small actions repeated every day. Before going to sleep, David looked at his notebook and smiled. He quietly said, "My future is changing because I started today." A few months passed. David did not become successful in one day, but he became stronger every day. His habits were changing, his life. He woke up early. He studied English every morning. He finished his homework on time. He read books every evening. Little by little, he became more confident. One day, the teacher gave the class an English reading test. Many students felt nervous. David also felt nervous, but he remembered his daily practice. He took a deep breath and began to read. The story was easy to understand. The new words looked familiar because he had studied them before. He answered every question carefully. When the teacher returned the test, David received one of the highest scores in the class. His teacher smiled and said, "Excellent work, David. I can see your hard work. Keep going." David felt proud, but he stayed humble. He knew that one good result was not the end of the journey. It was only another step toward his dream. After school, Ben said, "David, you are lucky. You always get good results." David smiled and shook his head. He replied, "It is not luck. I started with one small step. Every day I studied a little. Every day I learned something new. Small actions became big results." Ben nodded. He finally understood the secret. From that day, Ben also changed his habits. He woke up earlier. He spent less time on his phone. He read English stories. He listened to English lessons every evening. Soon, Ben also became more confident. The two friends continued to study together. They encouraged each other. When one person made a mistake, the other person helped. They never laughed at each other. They believed that learning takes time. One afternoon, their teacher wrote a sentence on the board. "Your future is created by what you do today, not tomorrow." The classroom became quiet. Every student looked at the sentence. Everyone understood its meaning. David wrote the sentence in his notebook. He wanted to remember it for the rest of his life. That evening, he looked at the sky and smiled. He remembered the days when he always said, "I will start tomorrow, Al." He was a different person. He no longer waited for the perfect time. He knew that the best time to begin was always today. Before going to bed, David opened his English book for a few minutes. He learned 5 new words and read one more page. Then he closed the book with a smile. He quietly said to himself, "Every small step I take today is building the future I want tomorrow." 1 year later, David's life was very different. He was more confident, more disciplined, and much happier. His English had improved. He could read easy books, understand simple conversations, and speak with confidence. His teachers were proud of him, and his family noticed the positive changes. One morning, the school held a special event. Students were invited to stand on the stage and talk about their dreams. David's teacher looked at him and said, "David, would you like to speak today?" At first, David felt a little nervous. Then he remembered everything he had learned. He smiled and said, "Yes, I will." David walked onto the stage. Many students and teachers were watching him. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He said, "Hello, everyone. My name is David. 1 year ago, I always said, I will start tomorrow. I waited for the perfect day, but nothing changed. Then my teacher told me something I will never forget. Your future starts now." Those words changed my life. The room became very quiet. David continued, "I did not become successful in one day. I simply started with one small habit. I read one page every day. I learned a few English words every day. I studied a little every day. Some days were easy. Some days were difficult, but I never stopped." He looked at the students and smiled. Success is not about being perfect. Success is about moving forward. If you improve just a little every day, your future will become brighter. Never wait for the perfect time. Today is the perfect time to begin. When David finished speaking, everyone clapped loudly. His teacher smiled with pride. Ben stood up and clapped with a big smile. David felt happy, not because people applauded him, but because he had become the person he wanted to be. As David walked home that afternoon, he looked at the sky and smiled. He knew there would still be challenges in life, but he was no longer afraid. He had learned the most important lesson of all. Your future is not built by one big decision. It is built by the small choices you make every single day. David went home, opened his English book, and read one more page. He smiled and quietly said, "Tomorrow will be better because I started today." The end. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. Learn English through story videos. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.